what really grinds my gears?
What the hell is wrong with you?
What the hell is wrong with you? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Vikings Uncensored proudly presents a new show that we're going to try out here tonight. We're calling it Ryno's Rants, where yours truly is going to tackle some of the hot button topics of conversation that are going around on the Vikings social media verse and anything else that pops up regards to the team that's kind of, like I said, drawing a lot of attention, so to speak. So we're going to start tonight with, of course, the news that broke over the weekend that the Minnesota Vikings had turned down an contract extension offer from Kirk Cousins. Kirk wanted 3 years, guaranteed fully, was asking for less money than what Daniel Jones signed for. It was, it's been rumored in that $37 to $38 million a year. But the Vikings apparently turned him down because they did not want to go out to 3 years. They were willing to do 1, possibly 2. Also not with the fully guaranteed, and some discussions on that no trade clause that he also has in his current contract. But with that, of course, the Kirk supporters, the Kirk backers. Good evening, Mary. Good evening, Ryan. Thank you guys for joining. As I was saying, the Kirk backers, or as we like to call them on VU, the Kirkistanis, broke out one of the old lines that they have been using for multiple years now. Anytime somebody brings up the possibility of moving on from Kirk Cousins, well, I hope that you're going to be happy with Christian Ponder once Kirk is gone, because apparently that's the only option for a quarterback other than Kirk Cousins is to get the next Christian Ponder, because apparently there has not been a good quarterback drafted in the NFL since 2012 when Kirk was taken. If the only other option that you can possibly have is Christian Ponder. But what they also forget to say is the Vikings actually made the playoffs with Christian Ponder in 2012. Of course, Adrian Peterson did have a lot to go with that, but Kim, no Lamar Jackson. Yeah, I agree on that one. I did a full rant on that one back on Friday's episode of Vikings Uncensored. Ponder was garbage. Yes, he was, Ryan. The thing with Ponder is he should never have been a first-round draft pick. He was, on most people's boards, a 3rd to 4th rounder, would have never been more than a backup. But we knew we needed a quarterback in that draft, and when the run on quarterbacks started, Rick Spielman did his patented panic move and just grabbed the first quarterback, I think, that was on his list and ended up with Christian Ponder. But like I said, according to some people in the Vikings fan base, that's our only other option if we move on from Kirk Cousins, is to be stuck in purgatory of Christian Ponder-esque quarterback play for the next however many years, basically forever, because we're supposed to keep Kirk Cousins until he's 70 years old or somewhere thereabouts, you know. But the thing of it is, I think a lot of these people that are talking this kind of stuff, hey, Skull Mafia, what's up? Roy, what's up? A lot of these people that are talking this kind of stuff probably are not of the older fan base variety, I guess. Maybe people that maybe don't remember back past the the Favre years and things like that. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, Vikings have had bad luck with quarterbacks over the years, but we have to remember also, for a lot of this time frame from a lot of younger fans and stuff now, Rick Spielman was the general manager or de facto general manager with some help from Brad Childress in the triangle of authority, or as I like to call it, the isosceles of ineptitude, since 2006 up until 2021. We hired Rick Spielman and to a lesser extent Brad Childress to find a franchise quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. The problem is Rick Spielman got fired as the general manager in Miami because he could not find a quarterback. So you bring in a guy that got fired because he couldn't do the job that you brought him in to do, and he was general manager of, for most part, took full control of player personnel in 2012, I believe it was 2013, whatever, but still in no small part was the reason behind a lot of this. Ryan, trade up and grab Will Levis. Levis is a guy they're starting to get some steam that he might be falling a little bit, and that Kevin O'Connell might, he's been kind of high on him. Right now, you can't really believe a whole lot of what you see just because it's all smoke screens and everything else right now coming up to the draft. Roy, let's get the Purple People Eaters attitude back. Absolutely. This team needs that. But talking quarterbacks, the Vikings have never, in the entire history of this team, have never been aggressive in going up and getting their guy in the draft to be their franchise quarterback. We lucked out in our first draft in 1961, grabbing Fran Tarkenton in the third round. But since 1961, the Vikings have drafted 4 quarterbacks in the first round. 1977, they picked Tommy Kramer with the 27th overall pick. Dante Culpepper was the 11th overall pick. Christian Ponder, of course, was the 12th overall pick. And Teddy Bridgewater was the 32nd overall pick. Vikings have a big surprise for us. I hope so, Mary. Ryan, that's why they'll end up with Hendon Hooker. Hooker's a guy I'm not that down on. I know a lot of people are. Oh, he's 25 years old. The only way that makes a difference is if this guy is our franchise quarterback and he plays until he's 35, 36. It means we only have him for 10 years instead of 12 to 15 years. There are a few things about Hooker that need some work. Tennessee ran kind of a funky offense. A lot of it was single read type stuff. But I mean, the guy only threw 11 interceptions, I believe it was, in 2 seasons and 30 some touchdowns. Richardson is for those who didn't get Cam Newton or RG3. That's I don't know. Full transparency. Anthony Richardson, I think, is my favorite quarterback in this draft, not named Bryce Young. I love Richardson's upside. He's very raw. He needs a ton of work, and in no way, shape, or form should he be starting on his first year, which would make him a perfect candidate for the Vikings because he could sit behind Cousins for a year, let O'Connell work with him. We hired Kevin O'Connell to be the quarterback guru, to be able to mold our own franchise quarterback. But again, like I said, in the draft, there's basically 5 guys that could be considered up in that top 2 rounds, probably. Of course, you've got Bryce Young out of Alabama. You got CJ Stroud out of Ohio State, Will Levis out of Kentucky, Anthony Richardson out of Florida, and Hendon Hooker out of Tennessee. Hooker probably falling a little bit. He's also got an ACL issue. He injured himself mid-season-ish or so last year, so he will not be ready to play even if you wanted him to. There again, for the Vikings, not a big deal because he'll be sitting for the first year anyway. But going back to the draft thing, this might be the first year where the Vikings actually get aggressive and go get their guy. I can honestly see that being a move that Kwesi would be willing to make. mean, in the past, we've always just sat there and waited for a quarterback to fall to us and taken him there. I mean, like we just mentioned, the highest quarterback we've ever drafted was Dante Culpepper, pick 11. Ponder was pick 12, and the only reason we took Ponder at 12 was because all the other guys in that draft. I still believe that Rick Spielman wanted Jake Locker, and Tennessee took him at, was it 8 or 9, something like that. He panicked, like Rick Spielman is known to do when something goes wrong. When the Bradford deal happened, and we had to go out and do it. We had when the Yannick Ngakoue trade, and then turn around trading him a few weeks later, giving up a 5th round for a kicker from Baltimore that we traded, or we cut a few days. They will trade with the Bears or Lions. Kwesi has shown that that's a possibility. I mean, I've never been a proponent of trading within your division, but Kwesi looks at the numbers. He's an analytics guy. And it's very possible. I mean, depending upon where the quarterbacks start falling, if there's a spot that we think we can move up and get a guy, I would not be one bit surprised to see him do it. There again, the guys you think of, if Bryce Young starts to fall at all, you give up anything you have to go up and get him. Russell, do we have enough picks to move up in the draft to get a quarterback? We only have 5 this year. But the thing of it is, you can give up future picks as well. So in order to get up from 23 to top 5 to 7, you're going to have to give up this year's number 1 pick, next year's number 1 pick, and something else, a second in 2024 or something like that, depending upon where we end up falling, unless you put in a player with it like Zadarius Smith or Dalvin Cook or somebody like that. I mean, there's ways around it. You don't have to give up the entire draft for this year. You can probably get by only giving up your 1st round pick this year, which really you're not giving up because you're moving up higher in the draft to use it anyway. So, but like I said, if Bryce Young would start to fall, there is no question at all. Bryce Young is the best quarterback in this draft, as far as I'm concerned. Bryce Young should go to Carolina, and if Carolina does not take him, I think there's a problem. You're not sold on Bryce, I mean, his height is a concern, but the kid can play. He's a gamer, and that's kind of the thing. People put a lot of emphasis on the height deal and things like that. I mean, there's been good short quarterbacks over the years. Russell Wilson for many years, he's 5'10", same size as Young is. Doug Flutie back in the day. There's everybody wants the 6'5", 235-pound quarterback with a rocket of an arm, but there's another guy later on in the draft. If we don't take somebody early, Stetson Bennett out of Georgia. There again, kid's a little older and he's undersized, but he's another one that if you watched Georgia the last 2 years, on their run to the national championship stuff, that kid can also play. And Fran Tarkington is very, very high on the kid. Now, granted, Tark is a Georgia alum, so he's a little bit biased, but when Tarkington talks about a quarterback, I tend to listen. But the Vikings are going to have to do something quarterback-wise. There's, we've relied way too many, basically throughout most of the franchise, of just waiting for a quarterback to fall into our lap, picking a late round guy, hoping that we can develop him into something like a Wade Wilson or a Brad Johnson, something like that. Or even worse, like we've been tended to do for the most part, is go out and get somebody's old retread. It's a known commodity, playing it safe kind of thing, that, we'll go get some guy who's played in the league for 10 years. We know what he is. We know what we got. Okay, that's safe. That's comfortable. That's fine. But playing it safe and playing it comfortable. Hey, Doc, how's it going? Playing it safe, playing it comfortable and everything like that is not going to win you a Super Bowl. It's not. You have to be aggressive. You have to make moves that are going to benefit the team. If you swing and miss, you swing and miss, but at least you're trying it. You cannot be afraid to fail, because if you are and you're just going to sit in that comfort zone of the Kirk Cousinses of the world or players like that, yeah, you're going to compete for the division. You're going to win 9 to 12 games, but your ceiling is going to be probably the division round of the playoffs. Case in point, the Kansas City Chiefs back in 2017 were a prime example. Interestingly, like Richardson, I don't see big potential there at all. Another Lamar type waiting to happen. I mean, it's the upside of Richardson. I like the athletic ability. He's got a rocket for an arm. His accuracy issues are more due to footwork and things like that, which can be easily corrected. Like I said, he's a project, but if he's got to sit for a year, that's going to happen anyway, because Kirk Cousins is going to be our quarterback in 2023. But getting back to the Kansas City Chiefs scenario, in 2017, Kansas City had been to the playoffs in 4 of the previous 5 years with Alex Smith as their quarterback. Alex Smith, very good quarterback, very solid, not going to kill you with dumb mistakes, going to go out there, going to put up good stats, going to give you a chance to win the game. He's the quintessential game manager quarterback. And they made the playoffs, like I said, 4 of the 5 years. But Kansas City came to the realization that their ceiling, much like what the Vikings is right now, their ceiling is that wild card to divisional round level. And with Alex Smith, they were not going to make the Super Bowl. So what did they do? In 2017, they traded up in the draft to pick 10, to pick a guy that hadn't generated a ton of buzz in the draft process. I mean, he was a first-round quarterback, but it wasn't, oh my God, this guy's a sure thing. That guy is Patrick Mahomes, who is the best quarterback of this generation right now. And what did Kansas City do? They proceeded in the last 5 years to go to the Super Bowl 3 times and win it twice, and are going to be considered Super Bowl contenders for the foreseeable future as long as Mahomes is there. I mean, is there a Patrick Mahomes in this draft? I don't know. There could be. It could be a CJ Stroud that turns into it, although I have my concerns with Stroud as well. A good buddy, Ted Glover, over at Vikings Report, is a huge Ohio State fan, and he doesn't think Stroud is going to make it the pros. I mean, I don't watch every Ohio State game, but Young, of course, has his height concerns, things like that. Anthony Richardson, very raw, needs a lot of work. Will Levis, again, plays well against lesser competition, but sometimes in his when he plays against some of the tougher competition, he tends to melt a little bit. He's kind of like Kirk in that aspect, more mobile than Kirk, can move around, can do stuff. He's got a good arm. Part of the problem with Levis is he relies too much on his arm and not putting the right touch on stuff, and kind of tries to throw the ball through people sometimes. Ryan says, Levis, Richardson, or Hooker, otherwise wait till next year, do everything possible to draft Caleb Williams. The thing with Caleb Williams is you are going to have the number 1 overall pick to get him next year, unless something drastically happens between now and then. I would love Caleb Williams if we could get him, but that's the thing. If we don't get our guy this year and have to go next, because next year, let's be honest, we're going to be probably about in the same boat we are right now, picking in that late teens to mid-20s range. We're going to contend for the division. We're going to maybe get in a wild card. We might win a wild card game. But with that meaning, we're going to have to sacrifice a lot more to get up and get a Caleb Williams next year because, only one person's going to get the number 1 pick. So you're going to have to you would have to drastically overpay to get there. Now, if we could land Williams and he turns out to be the quarterback that everybody thinks he's going to be, nobody's going to care 5 years down the road what you gave up to get him because he is going to be that elite level quarterback. Same thing with you. If you go up and get any of these guys this year and they turn out the same way, nobody's going to care what you gave up to get them because they became your franchise quarterback that's going to lead this team and compete for Super Bowls for the next 10 years. We hired Kevin O'Connell, like I said before, because he's an offensive mind, because he's a former quarterback himself, because we believed that he was a person that could mold a quarterback. And now a lot of the fan base is too scared to let him actually try that. They're here again. We go back to what's safe, what we know. We know Kirk. We know what he is, what he can do. And Kirk is a good quarterback. He's not a bad quarterback. I know a lot of people say I'm a Kirk hater. I'm not. I was impressed with a lot of the stuff Kirk did this year with the 8 comeback wins, things like that. But it's still the point where, when the lights shine the brightest, he tends to melt. That 4th and 8 play at the end of the wild card game, which I hate pinning just that one play because he played quite well the rest of that game. Monday night game against Philadelphia, he played like dog shit. Against Dallas, he played like dog shit. Isaac, you like Levis? There's things about him I like. I need to watch more tape on him, especially now when it's becoming more and more likely like the Vikings might do something at quarterback. I know I've watched a ton on Anthony Richardson. I've watched quite a bit on Hendon Hooker. I haven't done a whole lot on Stroud or Young because I don't believe they're going to fall, but Levis is a guy he's next on my list to start watching some tape on. Here again, I want to get a guy early. I don't want to just hang around and wait and pick up a guy 5th, 6th, 7th round like we always do. And hey, let's hope we can mold him into something. I'm a Kirk hater. No, I don't hate Kirk, Ryan, and I don't hate Kirk. I just think we can be better. I think Kirk Cousins has gotten this team as far as we are going to go with him at quarterback. There's always excuses, we don't have a defense. We don't have this. We don't have that. We had a top 5 defense in 2018. We went 8-7-1. Had a top 10 defense in 2019. We won a wild card game and got curb stomped by San Francisco in the divisional round. Didn't make the playoffs again until this year. Not all of that's Kirk's fault. I'm not throwing that all at the feet of Kirk. And it's not all Kirk Cousins' contract, although with Kirk having his guaranteed money completely there, it makes it harder to move money around. But Kirk is also 35 years old. He's going to start reaching the edge of that cliff. Levis didn't have anyone last season. SEC is not a cupcake division. No, it is not a cupcake division. The SEC is basically NFL light for the most part. Dallas hit Kirk hard in that first play, got in his head, stayed there the rest of the game. Thomas, I'm not going to argue with that one. You're not wrong. And that's part of the problem. I think some of the time Cousins is his own worst enemy because when stuff gets in his head, he starts overthinking it. And he still talks about an interception he threw when he was playing for Michigan State back in college that bothers him. And then even that play against Buffalo when Jefferson caught that amazing 4th and 18 catch. Kirk, after the game, was up there at the podium talking about how he really should not have made that throw because it was a low percentage play, but he did, and we won the game because of it. Now, fast forward to the wild card game. Had he made that same throw towards Jefferson, the outcome might have been different. But instead, he reverted back. I think that was in his head, and he reverted back to safe Kirk. Here again, it goes back to the Vikings playing things safe, being with the comfortable stuff. Kirk went back to what he was comfortable with, threw that check down to Hawkinson that had almost zero chance of being successful. he would have gotten a lot less shit had he just heaved it up for Jefferson and it got picked off. Okay, that happens. At least you tried it. But when you throw that weak-ass check down play, that is why there are so many people that are ripping on him so hard because of that. Hey, Ray, Dan, Jose. Dan, we have seen Kirk's best and it's not good enough. I tend to agree. Like I said, we're at our ceiling with Kirk. I mentioned this earlier. Kirk's ceiling, this team's ceiling with Kirk Cousins, the way it is constructed, is the divisional round of the playoffs, most likely. That's why O'Connell's moving on from Kirk. Ryan, I believe that is the case because Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa and Kevin O'Connell did not come in here just to continue on the Mike Zimmer, Rick Spielman regime, just more touchy-feely and happy-fuzzy type stuff. Drewster's in the house. Hey, there you go. Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensa came in here to put their own stamp on this team. Do I think last year that the Wills kind of gave them a mandate to run it back with the players that they had? I think they did. I think there was some of that. But I also believe this year that Kwesi went in there and said, okay, we tried it your way. This is as far as we got. This is as far as we're going to get. So now it's time for us to put our stamp on this team and do things the way they want to, which is why I think, and this would not surprise me one bit to see us move up in the draft and get one of those top 4 quarterbacks this year. I would not be surprised at all. You might have to go up as high as 3rd with Arizona to get one of those guys because, of course, we all know Carolina's taking one. We all know Houston's taking one. Indianapolis is taking one at 4 unless they get involved in the Lamar Jackson trade. I'm trying to stay away from the Lamar Jackson talk because, like I said, I ranted like hell on our show Friday night about that. But, there's things. The Vikings are the second best or second most likely team to land Lamar Jackson. We're not going to land Lamar Jackson. If we go after Lamar Jackson, you're going to have to overpay for him because you have to put out a contract that the Ravens are not going to match. Then after that, if the Ravens do not match it, you have to give up 2 first-round picks. On top of that, trade all your picks to move up. Drew, I'm not trading them all this year. I'm using future picks. I'm not going to give up we've only got 5 draft picks as it is this year. I think you can move up and get a quarterback just by giving up your first round this year. Probably then you have to go first round next year and additional picks in future years. But I don't think you have to give up a ton of draft capital this year. You can get, and you're still getting a first round pick this year by trading your first to move up. You're just not having a first rounder in future years as it sits right now. That's my thought on the whole situation anyway. But I fully believe Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell are going to put their own stamp on this team, and they're not going to hitch their wagon to a quarterback who's going to be 35 years old before this season starts. By the time he would have been at the end of that 3-year contract extension that he offered to give the team at a discount, he'd have been 38, 39 years old. But using future picks is why we have limited picks this draft. That's true. But if we get our franchise quarterback, Drew, it's worth it, in my opinion. And we also have to take into consideration our second-round pick in 2023 is TJ Hawkinson. And if myself personally, if you would have told me that you could get TJ, knowing what you know about TJ Hawkinson now, if you could tell me that you were going to get him for a mid-second round pick, I'd take that any day of the week. TJ Hawkinson trade was brilliant as far as I'm concerned. That's the best move Kwesi has made since he's been here, as far as I'm concerned. Who do I think they're looking to get, Ray? I know there's a lot of buzz that O'Connell likes Levis. I don't know about him so much yet. Like I said, I haven't watched a ton of tape on him. He's next on my list of guys that I got to go watch. I love the upside of Anthony Richardson. I mean, I think he's probably going to, everybody's shooting him up the top of the boards because of how he did at the Underwear Olympics and how he did at his pro day. But you got to look at the fact that he's only started 14 games, I believe it is, in his college career. He's very raw. He's like a Trey Lance. If you're going to try to throw him in too soon, you're going to ruin him. So I think that might make him slide a little bit. And if any of these guys fall to around 10, you definitely make your move at that point if you're not making it already. Anthony Richardson's Cam Newton. Okay, you've been listening to Tollison too much again. I mean, Cam Newton got the Carolina Panthers to a Super Bowl at one point in time. That's more than any quarterback not named Fran Tarkenton or Joe Kapp has done for us. So, I mean, like I said, he's far from a finished product. He's not ready to start. There's no way in hell I would start him in 2023. But you give Kevin O'Connell a year to work with the kid, and I think that there's possibly – I never was a big Cam Newton fan either, Dan. I didn't like his attitude. The guy's weird. I mean, he dresses like freaking Medea half the time, which fine, whatever. But I don't know. Just the upside of Anthony Richardson really, really intrigues me. Ant wanted us to extend Dalvin Cook for 10 years at $20 million. Yeah, well, we all know what comes there. Trade an assload of picks, move up and get a Zach Wilson. Well, the soccer moms in Minneapolis would be very happy to get a Zach Wilson, probably, but I don't think that there's a Zach Wilson in this draft. Like I said, I haven't, other than Cockinson, other than, like I said, I haven't done a lot of research on Bryce Young other than what I've watched of him when he played, because he is not getting past the top two. Stroud, again, I have my concerns whether or not he's going to pan out. He's shown flashes where he could be a legitimate superstar, and he's shown flashes where it falls back on the old Ohio State quarterback type stuff. I think Stroud's going number 2 to Houston, and after that, it's a kind of a crapshoot. Does Indianapolis go the more established route with a guy that they're going to be able to play right away in Will Levis? Probably, which could let Richardson fall. I don't know how far he falls. He could, Seattle might take him. The Raiders might take him. But if he gets out of that top 4, it opens things up a little bit more for us. Again, Hendon Hooker. Guy was a Heisman Trophy finalist up until the point he got hurt. Just nervous to mortgage the next 8 years making a move like that. Drew, at this point in time, we got to do something different, bud. We've done the same thing over and over and over again for 62 years, and we haven't made a Super Bowl since I was 2 years old. I'm ready to do whatever. And like I mentioned earlier, if we hit on that quarterback and he becomes an elite franchise level quarterback, nobody's going to give a shit what we gave up to get him, because we have the next Patrick Mahomes. We have the next Joe Burrow, that kind of a player. Indy might get Lamar Jackson. I think that's a very real possibility, Dan. Indy's real high on the list. I think the Falcons are a very strong possibility. There's word out there that Belichick really likes him, so the Patriots might be in the mix. I mean, reading the tea leaves, I don't think the Vikings are really pushing. I mean, I think they're doing their due diligence, which a good general manager is going to do. But I do not think they're serious about going after Lamar Jackson. I don't care what the national media or the bookies and all that other stuff say. I don't think the Vikings are going to want to don't think the Niners are too interested in Lance. Yeah, a lot of that depends on if Purdy is ready to go again at the beginning, when the training camp and stuff starts. Lance should be. You could probably get Trey Lance for a third-round pick, something like that. But there again, Trey Lance, I don't know, is ready to be a starter yet either. You have to give him another year sitting, and then by the time you're done there, you've only got 2 years left of his rookie deal. So is that a wise move to do there? I don't know that it is. And this is coming from a guy, I mean, Trey Lance is an NDSU guy, so I'm a bit biased there. Loved him when he played in college, but there again, he only played 13 games as well. So, but yeah, I don't think, back to Lamar, I don't think the Vikings are seriously in on him. I don't, just from the simple fact you'd end up paying $70 to $80 million in dead cap when you think of the $45 million that Kirk would be bringing in, or $38 million, I think it would end up being, that you'd have to pay out for Kirk if you got rid of him. Not to mention, if you trade and get Lamar Jackson, your trade market for Kirk Cousins went from possibly getting a first round, early second round pick to him to third, fourth, fifth round at the best, because they know that you're going to have to get rid of him. Plus, Kirk could decide to be a dick and not waive his no trade clause to anybody, so then you're stuck. It's just the logistics of that move. If we didn't have Kirk and we were dealing with a Christian Ponder, as the title of the whole show started out as, and wanted to move on to Lamar Jackson, I could see it then maybe, but Levis could turn out to be like Josh Allen or Paxton Lynch, total boom or bust. Yeah, he very well could be. Vikings are not trading for Lamar Jackson. Mike Lynn is dead. I agree, Drew. Agree 100%. I don't think any of that's going to happen. It's just media fodder just to keep the thing alive. It's either we got to listen about Aaron Rodgers sitting there waiting for the Jets and the Packers to figure stuff out and him sitting in the dark somewhere, or who's going to trade for Lamar Jackson, blah, 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 blah. It's the news. It's this, that, it's everything else. It's a hot button issue, and that's kind of what I'm starting this new show for, is just to kind of hit some of those things that we may not have time to hit on the main show on Fridays. So while we're also splitting off Brunswick's Best, doing some of this just to kind of give you guys a little bit more content along the way. Hey, Robert, how's it going? Whoever they want, if he's not there, pass on them. Can't reach and get another Kellen Mond. Yeah, I don't want to reach on a guy. If you're not convinced he's your guy, don't go get him. Don't take him just because he's there. You have to be convinced that this is a guy you can work with. This is a guy who you can make into a franchise quarterback, because otherwise, yeah, you're wasting draft pick, and you're going to be getting yourself a pink slip a lot sooner. But tell you what, guys, I planned on doing about 15, 20 minutes on this show, and we've been going here for close to 45 now. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I got to go take care of some other stuff. But quick reminder, Brunswick's Best comes out with a new episode Wednesday night. This week, Lance takes a look at the players to wear number 3 for the Vikings. And also, do not forget, Friday night, 6 p.m. Central Time, Vikings Uncensored, the main show. We go live with special guest Tyler Fornes from The Real Forno Show on Vikings First and Skol, editing manager of USA Today Vikings Wire, and a ton of other stuff, draft guru, as we break down potential Vikings draft prospects, some of his favorite guys in the draft, what he thinks we should be, the Vikings will be targeting, and all kinds of good stuff. Tyler's a great guy, a wealth of knowledge. So make sure you guys join us Friday at 6 for that. Again, Brunswick's Best tomorrow night. And I kind of like this. I'm hoping I'm going to make this a weekly thing for Ryno Rants too. So check out for another one here next week. But with that, I want to thank all you guys that joined us this weekend. Live show on Friday, Doc. Absolutely. Trust Kevin and Quasey more than Rick. I absolutely do. But anyway, with that, guys, thank you all for watching. If you have not done so yet, go to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, join us for all this new content we're coming with. Lance and I are working on making Vikings Uncensored bigger and better and bringing you more content more often. So check us out, subscribe, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night for Brunswick's Best and Friday night live show, Talking Draft with Tyler Fornes. With that, have a good night, everybody, and we will see you Friday.